Another comment Bob Hugh made earlier today is this data and information that's coming out that weaning weights really aren't increasing over the last 20 years, okay? So Dave Lawman has talked about this a couple of times at BIF. Here's a blog post I wrote about it. So I have two theories about why this is happening. I don't think it's a weakness or a flaw in EPDs. I think it's A, producers simply aren't using EPDs. And that beef survey supports that, right? The #1 selection criteria of 72% of producers is using that actual birth weight. So I don't think we have the total adoption of EPDs that we really need to see that genetic progress that we would like to see. The other explanation could simply be that the environment is limiting the expression of that genetic potential. So this is data from one of our research centers in the University of Missouri system. And this herd has been very progressive in terms of using artificial insemination and using sires with proven EPDs. And so if we look at the phenotypic trends, so not the genetic trends or anything like that, this is actual phenotype changes. We've seen the weaning weight increasing by about 1.5 pounds per year. So that's not the 2 pounds that we see in the Angus database, but it's a lot bigger than 0, okay? Let's talk about the environment. What's the solution to this? In my mind, the solution is matching the genetics of that animal, of that cow in particular, to the environment in which she has to work in. So we have a grant funded by the USDA in order to look at this problem. And again, you can get on my blog to hear more about that, read more about it. But basically, what we're trying to do is look for selection between these different regions of the United States and ultimately produce region-specific genetic predictions. So what one of my students has done is he's taken this 30-year historical data from Oregon State University, and he's done a statistical analysis, and using that, we can break the United States up into regions. And so these regions make some intuitive sense. Down here, we've got the Gulf Coast. We've got what I'd call the fescue belt here. We got high altitude and the challenges it faces over here. The desert Southwest, upper plains, those type of things. So if an animal is adapted to the region it needs to produce in, it's going to perform well, it's going to meet your selection criteria, you're going to retain it in the herd, and it's going to produce progeny, okay? So the beneficial DNA variants that animal carries is going to increase in frequency. If an animal is not adapted to your climate, to your environment, it's going to underperform, and it's going to get calls from the herd, and any of the DNA variants that it carries that are not beneficial, that are unfavorable, are going to be selected against and decrease in frequency. So this selection is going to change the frequency of these DNA variants that are responsible for the local adaptation between the different regions of the United States. So with this research, we'll be able to identify selection for traits that we haven't measured, things like heat, cold, altitude, humidity, arid, perhaps parasite load, perhaps immunity, perhaps feed intake, and many other traits that we would never even think or imagine that we should actually be measuring. And so we're going to use lots of different methods to try to get at this. And we're going to utilize the history of selection across all of the regions of the United States. The ultimate endpoint is a genomic enhanced EPDs, a genomic prediction that's tailored to the individual regions in the United States. So I want to just put up a toy example to explain what I mean by this. So here we're in environment 1. Let's say this is the upper plains, and we've got bull A and bull B. So their winning weight EPDs vary, the other EPDs vary, and so the bull A, we're going to say his index value is worth $10 more, okay? If we go and we analyze these same bulls in a different environment, the ranking is now going to swap because that bull A, his progeny, are sensitive to some of the environmental stressors that are in environment 2. And so now his ranking goes down to a $40. This bull B, his goes up to 43. So this is hopefully the outcome of what this research will be, and hopefully what we'll be able to do is if you're in the Fescue Belt, or if you're in the Gulf Coast, or whatever challenging region you're in, you can open up a sire catalog, and that sire catalog will have EPDs that are tailored to your environment. So when you select those bulls to produce daughters, you can have some confidence that there's some data and analysis behind that decision. So with that,